You need to have meetings on loudspeaker to work efficiently. Let me introduce you to CLACCCC. I used to work at a startup company a few years ago. It was pretty small and essentially it was just one big conference room with shared desks. I was working as a programmer and shared my desk with Pamela. I don't even know what department she worked in or what role she had, but she would constantly have meetings with people. She was in the company for a year, so she did have a little bit of seniority over me, but she was not a manager or anything. The thing with Pamela was that she would constantly have these meetings on loudspeaker. She wouldn't really be talking. I guess she was dialing in on remote meetings. Whatever it was, I just had to hear the sound of people having conversation over the phone. It got really annoying, especially when I had to really focus to write out some code and put on earplugs, yet I could still hear muffled conversations on loudspeaker with full volume. One day at lunch we were all hanging out, and as a joke I sort of brought up the speakerphone thing, and she said how she needed to have the meetings on speaker to work efficiently. I could have argued with her and told her that she could just wear headphones if she's just going to listen in on a meeting and not talk, but I didn't. Her facetious reply triggered me a little, so I kept my mouth shut. The next day, I brought out my secret weapon, a mechanical gaming keyboard with blue switches. You ever hear people type really hard? Well, imagine that but 10x worse. This thing clacks. The most unimaginably annoying sound to have ever come out of a computer accessory. What can I say? I needed it to be more efficient. I had a coworker like this. Not only did she steal our space and insert her team in the middle of us coders, but she did all her meetings on speakerphone. Now, normally I'm a face-to-face person. I like getting up and going over and chatting quietly with people. If they are in another building or floor or they don't like personal contact, then I will use the chat application. But at this job, I started calling everyone I needed to talk to on speakerphone. And I would call them, even while she was on speakerphone. After about 3 days, she started picking up her phone for all her calls. A company called Unicomp still makes the IBM Model M. Yes, they're loud. I had one, and it lasted a few years. Back when a cheap $30 Walmart keyboard would last me 3 or 4 months. Would definitely recommend. Steal my dryer. Be ready for smelly laundry. So I live in a college dorm, and it's pretty small, so our building only has one laundry room with 2 washers and 2 dryers. 2 days ago I was doing my thing and cleaning some clothes, just having a typical little Wednesday night. I put my laundry in the washing machine and set a timer for 45 minutes because I don't want to be that person who just leaves their laundry for someone else to dump on the floor. The other washing machine already had some clothes sitting in it for I don't know how long, and they looked like they were ready to go in the dryer. But that's not my job. Anyway, I come back down to put my laundry in the dryer and see that only one is available, as the other was hard at work drying some other clothes. So I open the empty dryer and start gather OMG my clothes out of the washing machine. I get about 1 handful of clothes in there before some little dude comes prancing in, takes my wet clothes out of the dryer, and gets his stale laundry out of the other washing machine to put into the dryer. Now I'm not a confrontational person at all, so I just stand there totally dumbfounded, and he doesn't even so much as glance in my direction. He starts the dryer and prances right back out of the room. Without even a second thought, I stopped the dryer, took his clothes out, and put them on the floor where he had so willingly thrown mine, and promptly used the dryer for my own clothes. Fast forward to this morning, when I go into the laundry room, where his clothes are still out on the floor, meaning that he would have just left them to sit in the dryer for 2 whole days. They smell awful, like that gross mildew smell you get in a basement. But I guess that's what you get for not being respectful of other people's time and property. When there's only 2 washers and dryers to share with 60 people, you've gotta follow the rules. Basic respect. TLDR, dude took my clothes out of the dryer before I had even started it, so I put his wet clothes on the floor. So he grabbed your clothes as you were putting them in the dryer? What a crap lord. I'm so glad I don't have to deal with this crap anymore. I used to live in an apartment with communal pay laundry and people would constantly take your clothes out of the dryer to use your time to dry this. I started having to bring a book and sit in the room to guard my laundry because it happened so often. Only 1 semester left. I mean, I get taking stuff out of a dryer if it's just been sitting there and the person hasn't gotten it yet, but when it's in the middle of a cycle, or if someone is literally in the process of putting their clothes in it, of course I'm not going to take it out. Because I know how to be a decent person. In college I would study in the laundry room. It was the only way to ensure my stuff wasn't evicted to give someone else free dryer time. What rolls around comes around. A while ago I was taking a Saturday biology class in college, just to get it out of the way. It was a 3-hour class followed by a 3-hour lab with about half an hour between the two. It was the worst college experience of my life, and if you're going to college, never, ever sign up for a Saturday science class with a classroom/lab portion. The teacher was practically asleep half the time, while we mostly did assignments on Google Classroom and did not enforce the lab rules, such as no food, at all. This is important. The gap between the class and lab was around lunchtime, and the only place close by where you could get food was 7-Eleven. If you didn't want to eat on campus, the campus food was way overpriced. So I generally drove to 7-Eleven to get something to eat. Another student, let's call him Rick, also drove to 7-Eleven every day. We both liked Monterey Jack Taquitos because they are basically cocaine, and this wasn't a problem because we usually only had 2 or 3 each, and there were usually at least 6 on the heated rollers. Well, one day, this became a problem. One day, Rick, who was not the brightest bulb in the pack, wanted to cheat off my answers on a test. I told him no, because I'm not going to risk ruining my academic record because he forgot to study. This rubbed Rick the wrong way. So, after the class section ended, he rushed out to his car a little quicker than usual. So when I got to 7-Eleven, he was already in line. There were 6 Monterey Jack Taquitos on the rollers. He looked at them, looked at me, smiled, and ordered all 6. War had been declared. I was forced to order the inferior buffalo rollers and taco and cheese taquitos. I ate them in the car on the way back, and was feeling rather put out. Well, fast forward 10 minutes, we both get back just in time for lab, and usually Rick waited to eat and take a bathroom break, until lab had started to get out of as much of the 3 hours as possible. That day, we were dissecting pigs. As soon as the instructions were over, the professor projected the process up on the board, put on her sunglasses, and leaned back in her chair, a short sign that it was now her nap time. Rick went to go use the restroom. His bag was sitting by his table. The taquitos were in the bag. I was not the only person who had a problem with Rick. He constantly slacked, and made everyone else do the work in group assignments, such as lab. His entire group hated him. They were also at the back of the room. They were the only people I needed to make sure didn't rat on me. It took all of about 3 seconds to convince them. I opened his bag, pulled out the box of taquitos, and one by one, rolled them like cheap cigars all over the pale, grey, slime-covered skin of his group's embalmed fetal pig. Then, I carefully placed them back as I found them, and retreated back to my group. My trick hadn't been so secretive as I expected, and about 1/3 of the class saw what I had done. Nobody ratted. Rick returned, and I guessed to shove in my face that he had gotten all the but taquitos and I was left empty-handed. He deadpan stared right at me as he ate them, one by one, with no clue as to why everybody around him was losing their crap laughing from the moment he took his first vile bite. He ate all 6. I did not tell him what I had done until the last day of the class. Despite it being over a month later, he threw up on the spot. That's why you don't leave your food in the lab amongst fetal pigs and foes.